Stream. All right. We are now live. Welcome everyone to the Ask the Experts for Kenneco Experience, episode number 5. My name is Trevor Fayes. I'm going to be your host for today. Today we are joined with Sean Wright, Dimitri Bastian, and guest speaker Jessica Knack. Sorry about that. I want to give a brief introductions to yourselves. Go ahead, starting with Sean.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Wright. I'm a Kenneco Experience MVP. I work for a web development and digital marketing agency named Wired Views in Northeast Ohio, USA.
All right, Dimitri.
Hello, guys. My name is Dimitri Bastron. I work as a solution architect for an agency called Delete Kagul in the UK.
All right, Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Knack. I work for a digital marketing agency called Acedia in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And of course, I'm Trevor Fayes, also Kenneco Experience MVP for Heartland Business Systems. And so welcome everyone. We got this back started up. We had a little bit of a hiatus getting the Ask the Experts. We had one cancellation of a previous one, and now we're back on track. So today we have a lot to talk about. We'll be going through a whole bunch of different topics, and here's the gigantic list of them. We're going to be talking about the Kenneco 13 refresh number 2, some of the different things that are being built out for it. Also some potential future ideas, and also get some group feedback to see like what are some things that you guys are looking for. We're going to talk about some new tools that are available. We're going to talk about also some .NET Core strategies on things like 404 error handling and how should you build out your navigation for your site, which is a key component of, well, every site. And lastly, we're going to be doing kind of a roundtable discussion about upgrading from Portal to MVC and what are the different things you should consider in deciding your path to how you're going to go from this to that. Of course, please feel free to subscribe so you get notifications of these upcoming videos. Feel free to chat. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing your input, things that you've experienced as well. Really want to make this an interactive experience for everyone on board and not just us talking to you. So it looks like we have a good amount of viewers on, and we're going to go ahead and dive right into our first topic. And that is going to be the Kentico refresh number 2. Now, to give a little bit of a recap, Kentico is trying to now go with refreshes with the product. So instead of launching a new version once a year and then doing all the new features there, they're trying to roll out new features periodically in what they're called refreshes. So if you guys have never been to the roadmap, if you go to experience.io and you take a look under the product and then roadmap, right here is the Explore Your Roadmap. And this is where you can see what things are under consideration, what things are upcoming. So these are things that are going to be planned in the release and things that have been released already. So we're going to open up and start taking a look at what is coming up in the next release. So we'll start off with the first one, which is copying and pasting widgets. I think everyone's remembered the days of Portal Engine where you could copy and paste widgets, and when we went to MVC, that was not there. Group discussion, how excited are you to finally get this functionality back in?
Yeah, it'll be nice to get it back and be able to have our clients have that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. So our clients are waiting for this feature for quite a long time, and like if you ever worked in the big corporate environments or working with plenty of content, so if you are looking after like thousands of pages, ability to copy and paste actually one of the things that saves a lot of time for populating similar-ish content from one page to another. So yeah, absolutely must have, I would say.
All right, and I too am looking forward to that. I'm curious to see how it's going to work with the sections in terms of will you be able to copy a whole section with the widgets, but we'll have to see as they roll it out what that all looks like. But yeah, I'm definitely excited. I know that Kentico had a kind of a widget template where you would create a templated page and you could add widget, then save that configuration, but still nothing beats just, hey, I need this one quick one, copy and paste and be done. So that's awesome. Another one that I put up there that I'm really, really, really excited about is the properties for the form builder sections. This is like almost a no-brainer because we love the fact that we can make our widgets and we can put properties on it and we can put properties on the templates. And it feels like the forums just got forgotten a little bit. So it made it very difficult to make like sections on your forms, and without these properties, even like adding like a CSS class that would be different so you could do some styling was really difficult. So this new feature is going to allow you to add properties to your form sections just like you do with your normal sections within the page builder, which means that I will have to update the Bootstrap layout tool to have the Bootstrap layout tool forms variant so that we can use that as well. Comments on this, guys?
Yeah, that's a cool feature as well. So just to give you a little bit of flavor why and where this could be used potentially. So imagine like having a form builder by hand is cool. Like you can create customized forms, fine, but sometimes you would like, for example, to put together a bunch of fields, form them into some format on the page and put some title against this. So up to this point, it was quite tricky to manage, but with form section properties, it would be a good way to go. Also, you would be able to combine a few fields together and make them a kind of page. So with this approach, you would be able to actually split the form, one long form, into few stages, so that we will have an ability to build wizard, for example, with a little bit of coding. But up to this point, it was a little bit tricky, as I said, to manage this before.
Is this something that will make it easier for us to say, okay, you can put in 4 fields here and they'll go next to each other, like first name, last name?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
another
that'll be
cool
great.
thing is, like, before in the portal engine, you had the layout that you could actually control completely HTML structure. So now, I mean, while we don't have the layout syntax yet, now at least we can make sections and have like HTML before and after properties. So you could put in like a header context that's not a form field, it's just some text to put out the section, or you could do those things a lot easier than doing the code dependent variant of it. And again, styling is going to be a lot easier, because then you can wrap your thing in just like a form section that puts a div around it with a class name, and now you can control how that thing is rendered, or put some client-side JavaScript to modify it.
Yeah, this is going to be huge.
Right now, if we want to have a variation between 1 to 4 columns for our form rows, we have to make 4 separate sections. Each one has the different number of columns. And when we're doing page builder sections, we don't have to do that. We just have a property that we can configure, a drop down someone selects, and they switch between 1 and 4 columns, and then it changes. And it will be great when we can do that for our form sections as well.
Awesome. And also a lot of great chat happening on. So thank you everyone for chatting. And I think everyone's feeling the same pain with this one, and hopefully this will solve a good majority. Another thing that was brought up in the chat is another pain point for the forms is the submit element and controlling what happens to it. So yeah, the submit button tends to be a little bit more difficult to be able to control and modify. And that's something I think we've, as MVPs and even as other developers, had this discussion of like, hey, we want more control over what happens with the submit. I'm not sure if it was was it you, Dimitri, or was it Brian or Brendan that was talking about this more in our MVP group? But I know one of the guys was saying, like, can we control what happens with the submit?
Yeah, a few considerations here could be important. For example, implementing the form, fine, but at the moment it's quite limited to what can happen after the form submit. If I'm not mistaken, you can display a thank you message, you can redirect to another page, and you can refresh the form. That's all about it. But if you would like to do something like gated content, for example, it is still possible to implement even within the current version. So you configure the form, you configure the submit action to redirect to another page, which will include, for example, your brochure to download, but it wouldn't be necessarily the brightest user experience, because it will be taking the user away to another page. So what we would ideally like to have is after submit being able to specify not only the thank you message, but having like a piece of code or widget displayed after the form submission. So this would be a big step ahead, I think. And if you feel that this feature would benefit you all as well, feel free to go to this under consideration tab and add your ideas, because Kentika are listening and waiting for your feedback.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on to the next one then, Culture Ally support for automatic routing. So give a little context. If you want to have your culture in the URL itself, like /enus/mypage or /fr-fr/mypage, you can do that, but it has to be currently the full language-region code. So a lot of us like, well, we may use like the French, or Spanish, but it could be Mexico Spanish or Spain Spanish. We don't care. It's just Spanish language. So a lot of us want to have just /es/mypage versus ESES or ESMX or all the other stuff that goes with it. So this just allows you to actually be able to control that and be able to specify that, hey, I only want just the first 2 characters in it, and that's it. which I think is a no-brainer as well. Like, I know Microsoft had like the whole like, full thing in the URL, but it just seems a lot of extra information. And not all sites use the regionality part of that localization tag.
And I also think, particularly on this topic, it would be really useful for SEO specialists and marketing people, because with this thing implemented, you wouldn't need to, when you launch a new website or redesign a new website. At the moment, if this is a multilingual website, this language URL structure has to, out of the box, if you are using out of the box routing, has to follow this pattern with the full culture, like FR-FR. But obviously, the websites are not built purely by technical people, for technical people. We shouldn't be forgetting about marketing departments as well. So it's quite important that with this feature implemented, we will have more control over the URL. And I think it's more like a feature parity compared to the previous versions, because on old portal engine websites, we used to have this control. And it's coming back to .NET Core world as well, which is great.
And I know that with my dynamic routing for KX12, we also have the ability to set that type of functionality in there. So I'm glad that they're getting that back in, because I know some people use that both in Portal Engine and in the dynamic routing, and they're like, well, where's our upgrade path now because of that? So that'll be released in that as well, which is awesome. All right, and then the last one on the refresh is less of a technical one and more of a marketing type one. So they have a sentiment analysis that they're integrating with that basically will review the content of your page and tell you that this is a happy article or this is a sad article or what's the feeling of this, which I haven't done a lot with in terms of sentiment analysis. But that can really help make sure, like, especially like articles and blog posts and pages, that you're not expressing the wrong feel as you make stuff. So Kentico really wants to make sure that not only is the tool a technical, awesome tool to use, they can build awesome sites and systems in it, but also that enables marketers to really create great content as well. And you guys have any experience with the sentiment analysis, or just want to talk on the importance of that? I know a lot of us are technical, so.
I haven't used it before, but I think with a lot of these features, there's products out there that are best of breed, and maybe really large organizations would be reaching for those and using them. But a lot of our clients, they might pick one or two best of breed products, but then they rely on Kentico Experience for the rest. And each of our clients has different goals, and so they can swap out which thing they're going to use. Having this sentiment analysis in the platform is nice for those clients of ours that don't necessarily want to go and pay for a sentiment analysis service to do, something with their content. They're writing their content right in the platform. So I think it's a nice feature to have with the product, and we'll see what the reception is when it's released.
This is a new concept for me, so it's interesting to think that a computer is going to tell me if my content is the right sentiment. So it'll be interesting to test out and see what kind of use cases there are for it.
Yeah, it would be also interesting for those who are, like, imagine if you're looking after the website, it does, and type in the content. Not always. This is the situation when you're typing the content in your own native language. So to avoid these kind of lost in translation things, those tools will obviously help content editors to make sure that they're following the right pattern.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely.
I can say I work with one site that is global. One of our clients that has people in EMEA and United States and all over the world, and yeah, sometimes their translation, if they're like German first and then English second, it can be pretty brutal. So that would definitely be nice to have that as well. Awesome. All right, so we're going to take a quick peek next into what is going to be potentially coming up. So we're going to switch over to the under consideration area right here. So here is a voted submit an idea up here, and they review it, they clean it up, and then they put it up onto this board. But we have a couple of them, and there's some good number of votes, especially on using content selector, which is one of those odd things that there's a list of pages that you will only get one currently. So people are asking, let's finish that up. Let's actually make it where you can select multiple pages, which helps for things like, for things that you just want to select these individual ones.
Yeah,
I know that. Oh, go ahead.
Right now, we get around this by having content managers select a container page, and then it will select all the children. And I feel like this is a feature of the platform that they were always intending to include, because the APIs for the page selector always returned a group, but in the documentation it specified we're only returning one. We're leaving it as a collection for future enhancements. Mm-hmm. So I think this would be a really nice improvement to that content management experience.
And we've gotten go ahead.
I was just say we do the container page thing too, but there's so many times where it's like, I want all of them, but this one, except this has to stay in this container page. So this would be great.
And what we've done to go around that is use page relationships oftentimes. We use related pages. For those that don't know, I'm a shameless plugger. The relationship extended model helps you to actually have those ordered relationships, so that makes it easier to set those. And that's what we've done with our clients. The UI tab to select their individual pages that you have, and that's still be nice for those one-off cases, or if you need to put like something that's not part of the template and just want to say, hey, I want to select these couple items and display it, that's going to be awesome to get that in there.
Yeah, because at the moment, as guys mentioned, there's one way of approaching these things. So for ease of content editors, we followed slightly different pattern. So instead of using like relationships or container for this, so we just dropped a bunch of fields on the form. For example, like item 1 to item 10, and for content editors it's quite easy to follow this pattern. However, on the code side, it still requires to transform like 10 individual fields into a collection to work with it later on.
And then they want 12.
Yeah. So yeah, long awaited feature. Glad it's on under consideration.
Another one that's on the board, which I also think is a no-brainer, is that calendar component for forms. Because, I mean, almost every site I've touched, like every other one I'd say, has at some point needed a date selector on a form. Select when you're going to do something, X, Y, Z, and it's been missing. So we're glad to have that coming back. I'm trying to think if I've actually seen a demo of it or not. But just the ability to have that built-in calendar selector is going to be nice, that we won't have to customize and create that. There's also custom fields for pages. So this is one that's a cool discussion. So Kentico, with I think it was just in 13 itself, it released what's called page features, like navigation, URL. They put all these different pieces into these feature set. And basically, it attaches you on the document or the node level, and it's in the database. They're tables that they created. So we wanted to ask them, hey, can we have the ability to add fields to the CMS tree table or to the CMS document table, or some way that we could append that data to say that, hey, all these pages have this new feature and they need this. So for example, for SEO, having a image file, or for your OG tag, your OG image tag. So we feel at Heartland, at least, that metadata includes the title, the description, the tags, which don't do much anymore, but that image is key, and to have that built into all the pages might be a benefit, or be able to check it on for a feature. So this is the ability, though, to somehow add on an extension to the node and the document tree.
So you're saying instead of making like so what we've done in the past is we've made like a base page where it has like the canonical tag and the metadata and stuff like that we wanted to add. So instead of doing that, we just want to add it to the CMS document.
Correct. Yep. And right now, there is actually technically kind of a system that's there for those that don't know. There is a document custom data and a node custom data. I might be getting the field names a little bit wrong. That you can actually add in. It's XML, formatted to XML. You can add custom fields to your nodes and stuff. But then it does make it hard for querying, for filtering, and all the other stuff to get that. But there is that capability, and maybe that's what they'll end up leveraging in this. Who knows?
That's what we're using right now. We have base page types, just like Jessica, and that's great for the content management experience, but it's pretty terrible for the data querying experience because you have to union a whole bunch of tables if you're trying to get like bulk data from various page types. So we use a custom module, global events, and we hook into updates of that, anything that matches that base page type. And we grab those fields that are common and then shove them into the document custom data field or the node custom data field. And that way it makes it really easy to query across all pages. You have to write a little bit of XML querying, but it works pretty well from our experience. But it would be great to have this seamless and not really have to go through these other pathways to get this information.
Yep. So make sure to go on and vote if that's something that you guys have value in. It doesn't show that I voted, but I'm pretty sure I've already voted for this one as an important one.
Also, I think it's worth mentioning here on custom fields for pages for initial release. I think those kind of fields will not be working with workflow potentially, because having like custom fields working together with workflow, I can imagine from the development point of view, it would be a nightmare to implement because there are so many different edge cases to cater for. But for those type of scenarios, to use this for sitemap, metadata, navigation, or whatever extra fields could be, for most of those scenarios, workflow isn't a requirement. So I think it should be useful even without supporting of the workflow.
All right, now I'll go through these last ones real quick because we're spending a lot of time on this. Widget zone restriction, just very simple, allow you to be able to restrict what widgets can be inserted into specific widget zones. So that's a nice one to have. And then highlight widgets with empty required fields. This allows you to make it that, if there is a required field on your widget configuration, that hopefully they won't miss it. I honestly have added a comment to this one. I would love to see this, but more when you add the widget, it immediately pops up that widget dialog, because how many widgets do we have don't require configuration? Like very few. Like most of us are throwing all of our configuration into that dialog because it's the quick and dirty, easy way of doing it. People are used to it by now. So hopefully they'll have that, plus with the feature of saying this widget should open automatically the configuration dialog, which was there at Portal Engine. All right, so we're going to transition now out of the refreshes and into some new tools that are available. So we have 3 new tools that have been released to various GitHubs. So we're going to start out with our very own Sean's Experience Page Template Utility. Sean, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I don't know how many people watching this have read my blog post, but I wrote a blog post about using page templates as the primary means of building out sites. On sites that we build, we almost entirely use page templates. And when you're heavily using page templates, there can be a lot of boilerplate that you run into when you're creating all these and registering them. And often these page templates make assumptions about the kind of content that they're working with. Typically, you have an association one-to-one between a page template and a page type. And so this library allows you to very easily create page templates and then register them to only be associated with a certain page type. And that way, when you're in that page template razor view, you can cast that tree node that you get access to the specific page type that you want to work with and render out all of its page type specific fields in your razor without too much ceremony. So you can see here in the README, it's really, with the C# curly braces, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines to register a page type to a specific set of page templates.
Awesome, because otherwise you'd be stuck with having to write page filters manually for each one, right?
Yep. And this just does the filtering for you, making sure that the page type name, the class name, has to be the prefix of your page template identifier. And as long as those match up, then you're good to go.
Sweet. And that's where you have this right here, sandbox homepage dash default dash whatever. That's the prefix thing, right?
Yeah. So if you put that underscore in front of it, it wouldn't match the prefix. And so there's an example of like, as long as you follow the naming convention of your identifiers, yeah, it'll just line everything up. And then when the content manager goes to create a new page, they'll get only the page templates presented to them that have the identifier matching the page type that they're creating.
I like that. Nice. Thank you. And of course, it's probably just a NuGet package install, right?
Yep. It also includes auto reflection registration for all page templates in your application. Instead of having to remember to go through and add them all to Kentico Experience's page template collection, in your startup, when you're registering your services, there's an extension method, and you pass it the names of the assemblies where you have page templates defined, and then you're good to go. And the filters, not the page templates themselves, but the filters. It'll grab all those filters up and register them so that everything wires up correctly with just a line of code. Awesome.
Very cool. All right, so that's tool number 1. Highly recommend you check it out. I'm going to probably be checking that one out as well. On to the next one. So this one is actually from one of the guys at Kentico. And Liam also quickly just said, already using this package. Thanks, Sean. Love it. So already getting some love from the fans. So great job again on that. So this next one is called the expandable section. So this is kind of Kentico's version of like the Bootstrap layout tool and stuff like that, except it uses completely just Flex, just pure Flex, and no other stuff, no other libraries needed. So I want to actually show you that because I installed it onto the demo site, and I was pretty impressed with it, especially the UI. So here's just a blank widget page. Once you install the NuGet package, you'll get an expandable section on there, and then you configure it. And this is the UI. So you basically can add any number of subsections, like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do horizontal or switch them to vertical. And then within each of them, you can have additional subsections as well. So you can keep on adding more on, and then you can give names to them, which ends up as a class. And then basically once you hit apply, boom, it makes all the sections for you that you can add your widgets to. So I was pretty impressed, especially with that UI like that. This is pretty cool looking, you know. And then you can delete, and there's also some custom styles you can add to it. So this is a cool little tool, especially if you don't want to use Bootstrap and you want to just keep things more pure. This will only have the minimal styles needed to run itself, which is just some flex block styling, really. Otherwise, like I said, you know, the Bootstrap layout tool is not as pretty. This is, you know, where you can set all your columns, the column widths, and the stuff before. And a lot of people are used to that, but this one definitely has a lot of functionality to it. And again, it's as easy as installing a NuGet package. So that's another great little thing there. And it looks like Rurai is probably going to download that package as well, because yeah, it's a fun little one.
Okay, so on this one, I would probably be a little bit cautious of, because it's, although it's very flexible, it's also very easy to overuse this button. So yeah, I can see this growing quickly and becoming a problem if you are using this all over your website. However, I would probably personally recommend this to be used only on landing pages, but for structured content pages, this isn't the way to go, because it allows you too much flexibility and implementing like brand control over the page look and feel on this expandable section would be an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and like I said, the bigger thing I think with this is going to help people is with, like, say you're writing some on a landing page or an article where you need to have like an image on the left and your text on the right. This is where this can kind of come into play, where you can have that. And that way you can have an image, some text inside of the article widget zone. And maybe one you have the image here and the text here. Next one you have the image on the right and the text on the left. It's those type of variations that sometimes work well for this type of situation. But to Dimitri's point, a lot of the partners really like doing a page type sectional approach where you just have a bunch of section page types underneath it, and then it can have more control over the rendering. So that's a discussion that you really want to have with your with each customer about, do you want to make it where it's very structured and rigid, but then you can keep control and make it look nice? Or do you give them more flexibility, knowing that you could end up with a spaghetti mess?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so something that we deal with a lot is that clients go into the HTML before and after and add styles because they know just enough to do that. So I would be a little concerned with this, that they would just stop using our style sheets, especially if that name creates a class. I didn't know it did that. So
pretty sure it creates, wherever you put here will be the class name. So test, hello, apply, save. And if we go take a look at this page, I'll verify that.
I think it's really cool. The user interface for configuring the section is really powerful. And I think that we as the development community should look to this as an example of cool things that we can do when building out widgets and sections. And we aren't just limited to a simple form. We have the power of C#, .NET, ASP.NET, and JavaScript to play together. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be really awesome if we could have like a drop down for them to pick from. So like something we used to do with CK Editor is adding classes all the time. Mm-hmm. So that would be really cool to be able to pick from a drop down, like this is the class you want to add to this section. That would be awesome.
Those are all great ideas. I would definitely reach out then, because like I said, it's on GitHub. So maybe put in an issue on there and say, hey, what would it take to do this or that? Or maybe if you feel adventurous enough to try to actually do it, make a pull request. That's the beauty of having all this stuff open source, that really people can start collaborating with each other.
Yeah,
sweet. Awesome. All right, one last tool to cover, and that is, it's not really Kentico experience specific, but I created this for our Kentico experience sites. A lot, Kentico is going to be coming up in the next version of Kentico, Codename Odyssey, is going to be React based for the admin interface. So a lot of, like our agency, we're really starting to dive more into TypeScript and React and learning that out, because that might be very important in terms of modifying the UI, as well as just making really responsive, awesome tools for our clients that are coded well. So the hard part about React, if you've never touched React or TypeScript or anything like that, is where do you start? And there's a couple different configuration pieces and everything that can be really hard to kind of get your head around unless you work in it a lot. So what this is basically it's a boilerplate that you can slap this onto your site. You do two things to install it. You install Node onto your computer, and you run 2 PowerShell scripts, and you're up and running. And then you can start modifying what's here. It has a couple base, like sample Hello World TypeScript tool and a Hello World React app with just a couple basic pieces. And it has things like your minification. It has your site map or your code mapping, all kind of built in. So this is a nice little tool for those that are starting to take steps into TypeScript and React to just get a starting point so you can start learning the actual tool versus trying to figure out all the configuration. Although I would highly recommend that you take some time to understand the configuration and what's actually happening in here. And like I said, this is a pretty bare bones system, so you can really take a look at what the minimal is for the stuff. Because that's one thing that's, to me, completely hard about JavaScript environments, is that there's 20 different tools that do the exact same thing, and one person uses this tool for this thing and this tool for another one uses this other one for it, but then uses this. So you can like mix and match, and it's this huge hodgepodge. So that's a tool that's available for those that are looking to do more React-based stuff. All right, so now we're going to get into some of our strategy discussions. So the first one that's on the list, and I know probably a lot of you have been waiting to hear these things, is talking about .NET Core strategies. So the first one is going to be 404 error handling. and how can you go about catching those 404 errors, those 503 errors, and all the different numbered errors that exist out there usually do? Sean, you might be going to start with this since you are usually the .NET expert in terms of where are proper ways to do things.
Sure. Yeah. So this can be kind of tricky. There's a lot more that I'd say Kentico Experience as a platform doesn't assume that it's going to do for you in the MVC world. And this is one of those things. There's a lot of different approaches to this. There's an approach that we've taken with our sites that lets us do a couple cool things. One is that we can add page builder functionality to the 404 page. So that's nice. Lets content managers add some content or design it. Another is to handle a 404 separate from like a 500. So you could have different pages that display different information depending on what type of error occurred. And really all you need to do is combine the Kentico Experience page builder functionality with some of the built-in ASP.NET Core features that expose information about, like what happened with a request, why is it 404 and why is there an error. I actually have some code I could quickly share and step through exactly what this looks like. So let's see. Okay, share the screen. Okay, can you see it?
Not yet. One sec. I don't see solo layout. Did it show that? I'll try to remove my screen and see if that helps. Okay, now try.
Okay.
Oh yeah, go bring it back up. I see where it is.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry, first time running the show, so there we go. Add to stream. Hey, we got it. Yeah. All right.
There we go. Okay. All right. So this is the standard Dancing Goat site. I have a custom page type called an error page. Has some basic fields. If I go to the page tab, we can see that I have my 404 page. This is the Dancing Goat 404 page that comes with the pre-installed site. But you can see I have a rich text area here and I can type in some text. So the page builder functionality is enabled for the 404 page. If I go over to the live site and I go to the homepage and then say, type in a URL that doesn't exist in the site, then I get my 404 page with my rich text content from the page builder. However, if I click the About Us link, then I get a different error page. And this error page is for like a 500. So in this case, I have a hard-coded exception that gets thrown when you visit the About Us page. And if we go to the network tab and reload this, we should see that, yes, it's a 500. And if we go back to the Not Found page, we can see, yes, there's a 404. So we're displaying content that's helpful to visitors. We're letting content managers customize the view of, in this case, the 404 page, but we're also returning status codes that are correct to, the browser or crawlers, anything doing search and SEO. So you can customize this how you want. If you want to return a 200 for all of those pages to not impact your Google search indexing, that's okay too. You can customize this how you want it to work. So let me go to the Dancing Goat site, and I'm going to go to the startup, and that's where all this stuff starts. So I scroll down here, and this is going to look pretty similar to what we get out of the box with a couple differences. So we use the status code pages with re-execute, and this says that anytime we have some sort of error that this middleware handles, it will try to re-execute the pipeline, passing that error as a code to this route. And we also have, when we're not in the development mode, we have this exception handler middleware. And this makes sure that all errors, anything that isn't caught by this status code, like a 404, would be caught by this exception handling middleware. And this goes to this exception handling path of /error. So now I'll go to my controller, and there is an HTTP errors controller. And this again comes with Dancing Goat out of the box, but I've made some modifications to it. Here we can see that I've registered my error page type with the error route of this controller, so that when we're in the page builder, we can have this action method be executed when we view it. I also make sure I manually initialize the page builder context, so that when we are accessing this controller through a route that isn't /error, like not found or something like that, Kentico Experience still knows how to get the page builder configuration for this page and enable editable areas and things like that. You can see I have attribute routing here, so that the not found and the error routes are going to go to this method. And then I also have a parameter of the error code if in case that HTTP re-execute middleware found an error code that it handles and is going to pass that to this action method. And then there's some plumbing in here to make sure that we're doing the right thing under different situations. So if we're in the page builder like preview mode, we want to set the status code to 200 and then just return some standard information. And this is what's going to appear when we are in the page builder and we're adding widgets. So we kind of short circuit all the special error handling and say, oh, we know this is okay. Just go to this page and return a 200. This is the key feature that you would need to have to know exactly what happened to get you to this action method. ASP.NET Core has a set of features that run all of the functionality within the framework. And you can get these features out of the HTTP context, and they will be configured based on what's happened while executing the request for a certain page. And you can look at these features. They have properties like the original path of an execute feature, or the path of an exception feature. The exception feature also has, I believe I'm not getting I don't think I have OmniSharp set up for this project right now, but the exception handler feature has like the exception that occurred. So you could look at that and maybe log that or do something with it based on what exception was thrown to get you here. So I say if the code that got me here wasn't a 404, then I'm just going to rewrite it as a 500 because it's like I don't know what happened. You could have other logic here to have more curated status codes if you wanted to, and then based on which feature was used to get me to this error controller action method, I'm going to return a different view with different data in the model. And by figuring out which feature was actually used to get me here, I can get the right path so that I can display that on the page. So, for example, if I go to the About Us page, then we can see we could not load About Us. And I'm not grabbing this from the URL here. I'm getting it from the ASP.NET Core feature that handled the exception here and sent me to that error action method. And then if we go to the views, and there should be HTTP errors, I can go to the not found view. And here we can see that I have my editable area. And that's what lets me put all those page builder features into the 404 page. The rest of this is what comes out of the box with the Dancing Goat site. And then we can see the error view. And this is used when like an exception is thrown and it's not caught. And we can see here that I'm going to print out the path of the page that couldn't be handled, even though that path's controller or page template isn't what's rendering all of this information out. So there's a lot of flexibility here. You can kind of go from this point and customize it as you want. Eventually, I'm going to get a blog post written of how to enable this. But yeah, there is the ability to have page builder functionality on a 404 page or an error page, and also log that information or display the right thing to the visitor.
Awesome. And do you have I know you're going to be writing a blog article, but do you have any of this like on a GitHub that you could post into the chat link? Yeah, so I'll put it in a GitHub gist, and I'll put it in the YouTube chat after the stream. All right. And I'll say that for us, we do similar, but not nearly as nice as Sean. So the boiler or the Heartland Business Systems baseline site has that same re-execute with the code, has the same controller, but doesn't have the page builder enabled. Could. And it doesn't have the custom error handling that he has. So I would definitely recommend check out the stuff that Sean posts on that and really have a nicer one there. Does anyone else have any other strategies that they use that are worthwhile mentioning? Otherwise, like I said, Sean did what I do plus extra, plus awesomeness.
Yeah, I would probably go for Sean's method. So absolutely, way to go.
All right. Okay, so that's the 4 for error handling, and thank you again, Sean, for that. Next, we're going to be opening the topic about navigation. So, of course, the navigation is very important for your site. I don't know of a site that doesn't have a navigation, except like a couple one-pagers. And so the question always arises, there's kind of 2 methodologies, there might be more, that are discussed. One is using the content tree to build out your navigation. One is using custom logic or a custom element to build out your navigation. So let's open up for discussion on which way you guys do it and then the reason why.
Yeah, okay, so let me jump in here. So although there are some recommendations, and if you start looking at, okay, so I need to build out website navigation, you go to probably Kintica documentation portal and search for navigation. There is an article explaining how to build a website navigation, and starting from version 13, there's even, when you create a page type, there's even navigation feature for this page type. However, in the reality for websites slightly bigger than Dancing Goat, this approach doesn't work particularly well. So, and today I was going to explain a few things why it probably isn't a best way of implementing navigation.
Here, let me switch the slide for it. There we go. First one.
Yeah, first one is the performance issues, and that's the most important thing. If you do remember from the Kintica 12 MVC world, the way how the page output is cached is like for each individual URL, the CMS caches the whole output of the page, so containing the navigation as well. So you hit pages A, B, C, and D and have output for all of those pages. Every output contains this global element. Then imagine if you would like to make changes to navigation. So you change something, if there is some smart logic with cache invalidation. So if you change something which was supposed to appear on navigation or even wasn't, this effectively clears all the cache on your website, because already cached output of the entire page containing all navigation isn't relevant anymore. So for this approach where you cache the entire page output, this becomes even more dangerous, so that okay, so you have enabled navigation feature for your page type, but when you are creating page, I would say if the website is quite big and the pages you're creating, probably 99% of the time you're creating the page, but that you don't expect to appear on the navigation. But end of the day, if the navigation feature is enabled for this particular page type you're creating, this will flush all the cache on your website, and it nearly to equal to website restart. So that's one of the considerations. However, with Kintica 13, yeah, it becomes less of an issue, because with partial cache tag helpers, you would be able to cache only one instance of navigation. And okay, so you amended the navigation, only this particular component, only one instance of it will invalidate and recache when on the next page visit. However, it still does a lot of unnecessary cache invalidations for this particular component. Okay, next one is kind of your oops moment. Again, by default, when you are adding a page of a page type that has navigation or this show in menu tick box ticked, by default, when you are just creating this page, you click this plus button, type the page name, and click save. It appears on the tree, and during the page creation doesn't show you the option whether this page should be shown on the menu or not, assuming by default that it will always appear. So you create a page, it appears on the navigation, then you realize that, oh, well, this page shouldn't be on the navigation. Then you go back to navigation tab and untick this tick box. So this could cause quite a lot of issues when you're publishing pages, because I'm pretty certain that content editors wouldn't expect this behavior. Okay, then to most of other cases would be to cater for different scenarios where your navigation on the website typically is a separate component and separately managed content. That's why the titles you're using for pages could be different from the titles of the pages I used when you display just the page. So for example, here, if you are looking at About Us page, it could be called About Us with About Us URL, and it may have About Us on the title, but on the navigation, marketing representatives may want to call it what we do, or something like this. And that's only one example of these kind of discrepancies that could happen when you're populating the content. Yeah, that's one. That's the next one, and probably the most complicated to deal with. In some cases, navigation on your website may contain not only the navigation items itself, or not the structured navigation, but also a featured content. So to marry this together, you need a way of configuring within the system that, okay, so there's on the left-hand side menu, these are navigation links, but on the right-hand side, there's a placeholder for adding additional featured content you would need to display like here and there, depending on the situation. And yeah, Trevor, if you can switch to another one. Yeah, thank you. So aside from what I've explained here, there might be other reasons why you may want to store additional settings for your navigation. For example, it could be navigation items could contain not only internal links, but external links to connected portals. For example, it could be a separate link to shop implemented on other system. It could be a separate link to other portals, and it could be just a download link with a kind of PDF you would like to show to the site visitors. Also, being able to configure the behavior, whether this particular link is open in the current window as opposed to new window, and these sort of things. However, you can still benefit from reusing the content and having the menu configurable in a kind of structured way when you are having a menu item and associated page with it, something like this. Yes, exactly. So within this use case, within the code, you're retrieving the navigation item, and from this navigation item, there's a page field where you can get a unique identifier of your page and get the additional content from that. This will help you to separate the content from the presentation, because like here the navigation item would be a kind of a storage for your presentation of your menu, whether it's like featured item or as opposed to non-featured, whether you may want to add additional CSS class or color, or even any additional small pieces of content or icon, something like this. Exactly.
And I'll say that this is exactly why what Dimitri's talking about is why we did what we did as well. So we also have on the baseline site a navigation page type that you control. And we've done a lot of things that he's mentioned as well. So we can point to a specific page and it pulls in the title and stuff like that. We even have in this system that's available on the baseline things where you can make like a dynamic menu where it acts kind of like a repeater, saying I want to grab these pages of this type in this order, this max level. And that allows you to say you have a blog link and you want to list your blog articles without having to add it each time. That's where you can have it automatically generate underneath it. And then I think a big piece also is mega menus with the page, kind of that featured content. You can then, if you have it as a page type, have a widget zone, and then using the partial widget page system, you can actually then display that as mega menu content on there, which I'm not sure why it's not loading. So we also have done that because even things like icons, like throwing an icon into your navigation is like near impossible if you're just doing it automatically through the page, because there's not really a place in here to say, here's my icon, you know, unless you explicitly put it out. Versus if you have a page type, you could have, here's the link text, so I could put, you know, home, and then I could do a font awesome icon or something along that nature to put it in there. So ours, you can do manual, where you can tell exactly what it was, put the text there. You can do automatic, reselect a page. You can do, if it's a mega menu, put those additional things that people from Portal Engine probably remember these fields. And again, the ability to make it a dynamic or not. So that is available. Anyone else have any other strategies that they've used? It looks like some of the chairs also tend to use both. Sometimes in more complex scenarios, we extend it even further using custom modules. So that's an interesting approach as well from Liam. That they use extensions to extend onto, I'm assuming extending onto like the page type itself or the custom data to extend it further. Kind of like going back to the whole page and tree fields and stuff like that. And yeah, it looks like Rai also does the same. I hope I pronounce your name right.
Jessica, you have a lot of experience with Portal Engine, and we'll be talking about Portal Engine to MVC. Have you used this approach with Portal Engine sites?
Yeah, so we switched to this approach a little while ago. The content tree approach is nice, but a lot of our clients, you know, for these exact same reasons, need that extra functionality to be able to customize. And it's so nice to be able to say, you know, okay, well, if you want it nested, then you have to nest it. And if you want to show it in them, and we've gotten so many screenshots of, why is our menu like this? So we switched to this custom where they can just build whatever they want and whatever pages they want to be on there. And there's a lot more functionality that you guys are using that I could see be really helpful to this. But yeah, we use this with Portal Engine all the time too.
I think that's a really important point for anyone watching to realize, is that MVC brings a whole bunch of new technologies that we all have to learn. And that's a lot of work for us as developers. But a lot of the content management features that maybe are being promoted with MVC, those can be done in Portal Engine. So if you are still working on Portal Engine sites and you're trying to get your head wrapped around all this like content only page items, and you've been using the page menu item page throughout all of your Portal Engine sites, you can start that migration to content only pages now before you move to MVC, so that you can get your content managers ready for it and you can get yourself ready for it.
Yeah, luckily, I never have used the page menu item. So it's a little bit easier for me to switch over because we've always done like the base type. I do a lot of nested inheriting. So
Honestly, I'm the guilty one. I use page menu type like all the time. So I'm going to sink down in my chair a little bit now. Which this leads into a good segue though on, you know, upgrading. So this is the final topic that we're going to be talking about. And these strategies that we talk about help make that upgrade go smoother. So Jessica, I know you want to talk a little bit on this, or questions you had on this. So go ahead, and why don't you start off with what you at Acedia are tackling with looking at your existing clients that are on Portal Engine and and getting them to experience 12 MVC, 13, or the next version?
Yeah, so we're dealing a lot right now with clients that are getting information from either blogs or online or Kentico themselves and saying, this is when the support's going to end. You want to stay up to date with your sites, and all of these new features are coming out. You want these, and all this stuff is great. But then they come to us and they're like, okay, so upgrade us. Well, that's not really how it works. So I'm really struggling from a perspective of these clients that I have on Kentico Web Forms 11 or 12. What should we do? Should we upgrade them to 13 with a rebuild, because it has to be rebuilt? There's no more web forms. But the back end is still web forms. So then do we wait until we go to Kentico Experience where the back end is MVC as well? Are we going to have to rebuild if we go to 13 again? So I am having the hardest time talking to clients because, saying, yes, you want to upgrade, you want to stay up to date is very difficult when they don't want to pay for 2 rebuilds, which I wouldn't want to either.
And I'll give a quick recap for those that aren't familiar with. So we're looking at Portal Engine, MVC, MVC.NET Core, and also the admin interface for this whole thing, right? So we run into an issue where Kentico 12 has Portal Engine, and they have MVC, not Core, but MVC, right? And the admin is still .NET Framework, so that's the same, right? So Portal Engine.
All of our 12s are in web forms, though.
Yeah. So then so 12, you could build an MVC site, not the admin, but a site, but you couldn't do .NET Core. In KX13, you can do MVC Framework, which there's no point really. You want to build an MVC.NET Core, but the admin is still web forms. So now there's no Portal Engine in 13 either. So that you have to drop that off. And then in the next version of Kentico after that, it's going to be all .NET Core for the site, and the admin's going to be .NET Core as well. So there's like this weird, you can go to one, but then you lose this, but then you have to go to the next in order to gain that. Kind of like trying to let go of one branch as you're flying off to the next branch type of situation that's happening in this situation. So Sean and Dimitri, why don't you guys go ahead and start off, and I'll give my opinion at the end then as well.
Yeah, I think I would, before giving an answer, I would first ask some questions. So for example, Jessica, I'll ask you these questions. For a client site that you have, where is most of the customization of the site? Where have you spent most of your work? Is it in building out widgets and web parts and page templates in the Portal Engine? Or is it in the content management, like backend with custom modules and integrations and things like that? If a lot of it is on that public site side, there might be a different answer than if a lot of it is on the back end and integrations and customization of the CMS administration portal.
Sure. Yeah, most of it is web parts and widgets. We don't do a ton of custom modules, just because if we don't have to, why? And integrations, if there's any integrations, it's usually with a third party. So I'm not really concerned about that because it's just .NET.
Yep. And that's a great point, I think, is that wherever the application, wherever your custom code is running, if you can target .NET Standard 2.0 and stay away from like the web or presentation features, you can write that agnostic of whether it's running in ASP.NET Core or classic ASP.NET web forms. And so if that's where your customizations are, I would say, yeah, you can upgrade to Kentico Experience 13, run on .NET Core 3.1 or .NET 5, and get all these great features and not have to worry so much about a rebuild when the next generation Kentico Experience Odyssey comes out with that administration portal rewritten in ASP.NET Core. However, I know like Trevor, his clients rely a lot on custom module features that his team has built. And with that, I would say wait until Kentico Experience 13 Odyssey is released and you have that React UI and ASP.NET Core API that the administration application is running on and integrate with that, because that's like, if you're doing those custom modules and the custom module UI, there's going to be a lot of stuff that might change there. And so you would potentially have a little bit of that double rebuild.
And I'll say that with the admin UI, because we have gotten to see like a sample of the new Kentico Experience UI, things like your object selector or your object listing, your edit and new UIs, your Unigrid stuff, that really hasn't changed too much in terms of the functionality. It's still pretty easy to build. It's changed completely in how you build it, but the functionality hasn't changed too much in terms of what's available and stuff like that. So that's a safer one. The question I would ask, though, that goes into this as well is, are they looking to do a complete rebuild, or is there so much content that exists in Page Builder widgets functionality that needs being migrated over? And this is kind of one of those tough questions. I would say we always should probably push for a rebuild, because that's going to be the easiest versus trying to pull things over and saying, hey, it's time to do a nice new site refresh. Let's rebuild, fix anything that was done wrong, do it right, and just rebuild it in 13 and re-put in the content. If that's the case, then I would say start rebuilding the site on KX13, so we don't need a lot of the custom module stuff, because that website part of it, when you go from 13 to Odyssey, it really doesn't change. Like they're not looking to like drastically alter the site. I'm hopeful that really when we make that transition for the site itself, if it's built in MVC.NET Core, you just install a new NuGet package and you're done. So that's hopefully should be about the experience for that part. So if it's rebuild, that's what you want to do. Now, I as well have clients that have thousands of content pages that have either editable text and editable images, or they have widget zone content, right? And how do you migrate that? Because you would have to get them to 12 Portal Engine, and then you either create the MVC not core site and then be able to pull that over, which is not recommended. Or what we're recommending for some of our clients is that in those cases, we're going to write a custom script. I'm probably going to create a blog article if we ever build it, to convert your widget content to Page Builder JSON data. So I already have that kind of planned out. So that way you go to 12, you copy the site, you convert it to Page Builder, then you upgrade them to 13 and rebuild it in .NET Core. And you might have to redo that upgrade process once all the code's done, just because it's going to take some time to build it out. So if they have content in those things, migrating that to Page Builder may be needed, may not be needed. It depends on the client, because those are the tough ones. It's saying we don't have the capacity to rebuild thousands of pages, but it's still structured content. It has an editable text area, an image, so we can translate that into an MVC template. So that's one thing
that
we
sounds
ask.
Horrible.
It can be. But that's the reality for some of them, that they have thousands and thousands of pages. I have two clients, and one of them is a school that has 20 schools on this one Kentico site with teacher pages, curriculum pages, all stuff that's all built with Portal Engine.
Is there any kind of an import tool like they have now with Experience?
So page type content will transition, right? So page type, if it's fields, that will upgrade, no problem. If it's the widget content that you would need some sort of tool, and it doesn't exist yet, I have plans on it. So I have the system built out in my mind, and I want to build it out and make it so it depends on if they sign the project or not. But that might be something you'll be seeing in the future, is a tool that will be able to take your stuff and be able to convert it over. And that way, as long as you have the Page Builder widgets and sections that match up, and we'll have a conversion event that you can do adjustments. That's possible for those cases. But I think everyone here agrees that if we can avoid that and just say, let's rebuild it, let's rebuild it. And again, that's only the widget content. Page types and their content, that can just write over,
Yeah, and it will stay, according to what we're hearing from Kentico, it will stay the same for Odyssey as well, or for the next version of Kentico as well. So nothing's going to change in your content tree. So the way the content is stored there should be the same. Also, there are other ways of approaching this. content migration. So when we've done a couple of times in the past, so when we needed to migrate content from the old website to a new website, and it also doesn't necessarily have to be Kentico. So we can, from the existing website, we can write some, I don't know, automatic crawling tool that will be analyzing the output HTML of the existing page, like pulling some of the pieces of content from that. And on the new website on Kentico, we know that when you need to embed this content somewhere, if it goes under page types, fine. You can directly, like from this pulled content, you can export this into CSV, Excel, whatever, and import with the toolkit, or directly insert this into the tree via API. However, if you would need after that to insert widgets on the page, you wouldn't be able to do this directly via API, and it will require a bit of reverse engineering. Like you build up your page within Kentico Page Builder, save it, analyze the JSON file, JSON data stored within the database, and try to match and map. Like there's your data you have, there's the JSON you need to produce, and write some small piece of custom code that will be doing lift and shift for you. And as long as this is a kind of one-way migration, this code doesn't have to be like bulletproof. So during the testing and making sure that works, it should be just good enough to make it work once. So yeah, once it's ready-ish, you run it, you migrate the content. It doesn't have to be also like everything perfect. Then there will be a round of review with your content editors, for example, that they will scan through the migrated content and fix the small things.
I think some of these technical solutions are really awesome when you absolutely have to rely on them, and when there's a bunch of restrictions around timelines or budget for these sites. But I have another question for you, Jessica. So do you have any clients right now that really want to upgrade to Kentico Experience 13, but they don't have any changes that they really want to make to the site?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. I figured there's probably some like that. And for those clients, I might say something that people would boo and hiss about, but keep them on Portal Engine. Yes, there's going to be a support window that after that, there is no support, but that doesn't mean the site stops running. It just means that if bugs are found in Kentico as a platform, they won't be fixed for free as a hot fix. I could see that security fixes might, and I'm not speaking for Kentico, they might still get rolled out. So if there's a critical security bug, they've done this in the past where they've patched things that were out of scope if it was a small change but a critical bug. So I think clients can potentially keep running on Portal Engine until they're ready for that big feature change, whether that's a redesign or they need to do a big integration with something. And, the Portal Engine is just being an impediment to getting that work done. So I don't know as though it's important to get everyone upgraded right now. And there might be a more opportune time within the next year or 2 or 3 or 4, because we have clients that run on versions of Kentico Portal Engine that are no longer supported, and their sites run great, right? These things don't just suddenly break. They run great. We still deploy updates to them, and they don't have to spend a bunch of money to move to a version of the platform that requires a rebuild that really they won't get a ton of benefit out of right now.
And that brings
we do have a couple of clients that, like, we just did a huge redesign in 12, and we didn't go to MVC because they were used to what they were doing. And yes, I agree.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah,
I'm glad that I'm not the only one that thinks
no. we have a lot of clients that are in the same situation. I will say though, as a developer developing on a Portal Engine site, I would get into the routine of starting to distance yourself from using web form technology where it makes sense. So that way those features are easily upgradable. So a good example, kind of back to the React TypeScript stuff, we're doing a lot of our development no longer even on these Portal Engine sites. We're not doing stuff in web forms. We are doing it client side with TypeScript and React and using Web API, which is supported in the Portal Engine, and making our systems API based. So that way, when we move over to MVC, we just basically convert that Web API controller into a normal controller, and we're done. A little bit of the markup. So there's a lot of ways that you can also future-proof. And again, with the strategy of using page types versus widgets and stuff like that, that will also help you in that transition, because that will transition pretty neatly from one to the other.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me, is that I learned Kentico Web Forms. That's where I started. So there's still a big learning curve for MVC for me. So but doing that's a really good idea, because then it breaks up the actual learning curve too, if you're just bringing it into little pieces throughout the site that you can turn into that updated technology. So that's a really good idea.
And just to confirm, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jessica, I feel like you already have a leg up on things by not using the page menu item and having a bunch of, relying on editable text and static text to build out the entire site. If you have those separate page types and you're using structured content, I mean, there's a whole bunch of coding technology stuff that, yes, you have to learn to get into where Kentico Experience is going and where it is now. But by having that content mindset, I feel like that's a change that a lot of developers would overlook. They would say, oh, I know MVC, I can build an Kentico Experience 13 ASP.NET Core site, no problem. I know MVC. But then you're missing out on a bunch of things that the new mindset of the platform is encouraging and enabling with structured content. And you're already there. So yeah, the technology parts they're tricky and they will take some time. But I feel like that mindset of already looking at structured content is a key one that's easy to overlook.
Mm-hmm. And just quickly in the chat, to confirm for Liam, that Kentico 12 is going to be, it's on an extended support. I think it is 2023 fall that it will end. And again, that's security updates and things like that. I mean, and bug fixes. But honestly, beyond that, it's a mature, even though it's using old technology, it's a mature platform. So you can do sites well in it. Can't do it super fast like you can with MVC.NET Core unless you use a lot of the output page caching and stuff. I mean, you can make a site pretty fast, but nothing beats .NET Core speeds. But you can still build out your sites there, and that's fine, And I would, like I said, try to reach for that. We're going to rebuild. If you can time it well where they say, hey, we need a new site look, do that. That's going to be the best way to go about it. And hopefully there's not a lot of weird stuff that if you do need to port over the Portal Engine that you're going to need to do on that stuff. Luckily for our clients, they only pretty much use for Portal Engine stuff like widgets. They use the Bootstrap layout tool, which you can port over. They use static image and a rich text. And those are the three things that they mainly use in Portal Engine, aside from a couple small widgets that we would have to rebuild. So for those clients, we are with that script that of all the content, it should be a pretty easy one-to-one over to existing tools and stuff.
If you are a Kentico developer and you are either apprehensive or you're excited about moving to MVC and ASP.NET Core, I think a great first step for you is to come and ask the expert streams and ask questions and participate in the community, because there's a lot of people here that are happy to help, happy to give advice. And, we want everyone to kind of move into this new era of Kentico Experience as a platform together and helping each other out with everything that we all know. My team, we might figure out how to do one cool thing, and Jessica's team might figure out how to do another cool thing, and Trevor's team is doing all this crazy stuff. And if we share this information, it will help all of us to build the best sites that we can for all of our clients.
And I just want to say too, Sean, I feel like we're friends, and this is the first time that I've actually seen your face, just because you guys are so friendly and helpful. And so the Slack channel and the community of Kentico has just been so great. And it's awesome to be able to have these kind of opportunities.
So for those that don't know, if you're not part of the Slack Kentaco community, I gotta find, nope, not there. Where's the link to it? I think, do we still need to add people? I know I'm an administrator and I can invite people to this. I'm not sure if it's open yet, but it's kentacocommunity.slack.com. I'll put it in here is the Slack channel. And then if you can't get in by yourself, just shoot, one of us an email. I'll put mine in here. And, I can add, sorry for the typing, add you to the Slack channel. There we go. So take a look at the chat. You'll see it there. But yeah, that way you can ask people. There's development questions. Even us MVPs are asking questions all the time on here and going back and forth. So this is a great place to have that community and get some fast responses back and forth. And also, like I said, Sean, I'm not sure if you have the link. I know there's a really awesome Git page that has like all the resources. Can you find that real quick and paste that for me into the chat?
Yeah, it's on
that lists everything. And basically that is, the different GitHub repositories, development areas, all that stuff. And like I said, as you figure out stuff, please share it. Make the community better. That's something that really has started to increase lately, is like people are starting to share their tools and their ideas and make everyone better, which I think is amazing, because really we're in this together. It's been a hard transition, and we all want Kentaco to really continue to take off in this direction and Experience to continue to become that great product that we know and love. So we are at well over time. So we'll probably wrap her up. I just want to thank again our speakers, and Jessica, thanks for coming on with us, and you're a great part of the conversation. Anyone else that wants to be a guest speaker on Ask the Experts, please send us a line, send us a message in the chat. We'll probably do another one, I'm hopeful, next month, and keep this at least a monthly thing. And we'd love to have one of the other developer community people in there so we can really kind of, get other people's opinions, not just us MVPs and stuff. So, and see here now. Oh, actually, a good point. Last question and answers. So if anyone has any last questions, I saw Liam posted one. Are you all actively promoting Portal Engine rebuilds in KX13 to your existing clients at the moment? I would say that yes, we are starting the conversation with all of our clients, and I would say, yeah, start the conversation early, get it figured out. Some of our clients are waiting on larger budgets because rebuilding a site is sometimes expensive, It's getting cheaper now that we're getting more things put in place. There's more tools available, so that is driving down costs on it. But yeah, I would definitely start that conversation and take a look at what their site is it ready for the review? Ask those questions we post in the chat, as well as, if you haven't had any experience with Kentaco Experience 13 and stuff, again, shameless plug, but check out the HBS GitHub and the baseline sites for 13. That at least will get you a starting point that has everything kind of there, so you can start exploring it. Check out Sean's blog articles as well as the other MVPs. Sean has a lot of stuff on getting into like how to make your code like completely solid, that it can never blow up, and has all these cool things in it. It goes way over my head, so don't feel bad if it goes over your head too. I feel bad for always messaging Sean like, hey Sean, I still don't understand this. Can you help explain it to me? But Sean's really great about that, as well as the rest of the MVPs. But yeah, have those conversations and start looking at getting them moved over. Any other questions?
I would also mention too with that, one thing that I think us as developers in general always overlook is that we are an expert in whatever we're doing, right? And our clients come to us for a reason. So if we talk to the clients and bring that up and be able to have those conversations way before we actually want to do it, it only builds their trust in us. And it only builds our reputation as actually caring for our clients. So even if you don't know everything about it, I would definitely bring it up and talk to them about it and ask the business questions on what kind of business solutions you need to find for them, because it's so important. And now that I've gotten a little bit more involved in the actual community. It was awesome. One of my clients that we had a meeting and they're like, oh, by the way, I heard this thing about Kentico. And I'm like, yeah, so let me tell you all about it because I already knew. So yeah, have those conversations, even if you don't know everything, because the clients will really appreciate that.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for a great Ask the Experts session. Again, keep an eye out. We'll be promoting the next one when we set a time for it. And I think the next one is actually going to be a little bit more marketing focused. So if you have your project managers and your marketing people, we're going to try to get Mike Wills in from Blue Modus, and he's a little more on the using the EMS features and the marketing side. So we'll have a little bit less developer-y one and a little bit more of the marketing side. So stay tuned for that. This probably will have some technical things, so don't abandon us yet. And hopefully we'll be able to do a little more preview of the refresh if it's out by then. So, all right, take it easy, everyone, and happy coding.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.